call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody. Oh, first we have, and as we're doing that, if anybody is here to have any public comment, we would welcome that also. Seeing none, we will move right along then with the consideration of the approval of the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next is consideration of approval of the minutes for the May 16th and the May 21st meetings.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the minutes? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Next is consideration of the approval of the consent calendar.
So, second.
Any further questions on the consent calendar? Clerk, call the roll again.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the business of the mayor. Just one thing tonight is a proclamation for Flag Day. The Flag Day direct participant is not able to be here tonight, but this is an Elks program, and so we're going to let Honorable Councilman Jerry Yeager comment on this one.
Honorable.
You have any comments on Flag Day?
Well, the Elks have done this for many, many years, and it's part of the goal of the Elks is to assist veterans and to assist youth. And they have a ceremony on Flag Day they have every year in Central Park, which has been very impressive. People ought to be there to see that because I really enjoy that. So that's it.
Any questions of Jerry before we move to approve the proclamation?
I'd so moved.
Second.
Any further questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
I will read the proclamation and then I'm also participating in the ceremony on the 14th, so I'll take the proclamation along with me at that time. But proclamation is that whereas the Charles City Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks Lodge number 418 desires to hold the annual Flag Day observance at Central Park in Charles City at 5:30 p.m. on June 14th, 2018. And whereas this grand commemorative event is a traditional ceremony with the participation of numerous American citizens, veterans, and local musicians, now therefore I, Dean Andrews, Mayor of Charles City, Iowa, do hereby proclaim the observance of Flag Day on June 14, 2018, and encourage all citizens to renew our allegiance to our flag at 5:30 p.m. at Central Park in Charles City. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto subscribed my name this 4th day of June 2018, and that's signed by myself. So I say I'll be participating in that ceremony, and we will present and read the proclamation again on that day. So
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome. Moving right along, we have, and then next is a request for street closure for the Relay for Life, which is being held on June 22nd. Do we have any discussion on that one? Do you have any, it's just been kind of approved by you, was it?
I've spoken with somebody regarding that. It's not an
Connie Bernie,
issue.
probably.
It'll be the same as it has in the years past, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I think it was North Jackson for that one block and then Blunt Street for the one block. So-
Correct.
These guys have done an excellent job with that in the past, and I don't see any reason they won't do it likewise this year. I'd so move further.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
And that request is granted then. Next, we have consideration of Resolution 8018, which is approving Smart Source request for information. Discussion for that one.
Yeah, what this is, and we talked about this a little bit last week during the workshop when we did the review of the fiber project. But what this would be additional work with Curtis Dean and Smart Source Consulting and his partner Todd Keelkoff. And what it would be is a request for information to solicit potential vendors, entities that might want to work with the city on doing this fiber project. So while we're putting together that plan, we also want to be looking at figuring out a way of how we want to structure the utility, whether it be a utility owned and operated by the city, own it, and so we contract with somebody else to do it. However we want to try and do that, we're going to go through this process with the Broadband Commission, its ex officios, and really kind of vet that out to see what is important to us, and then relay that to the council. And so this process here is to help vet that process and take it to the next step. They quoted us an amount of not to exceed $7,500. I have every anticipation will come in underneath that. But this will be kind of our next inch forward as we look towards doing that project. This is the next small step before the big leap, I guess you could say.
Any questions for Steve?
How would we fund this, Steve?
My plan is, I budgeted a little extra in the cable fund this year for some additional consulting work, and so this would come out of that.
Okay.
We discussed that and moved for it.
Second.
I know, Steve, in the summary, it talks about option 1 and option 2 as far as doing this and the other proposal concurrently or consecutively. That doesn't need to necessarily be decided today. That will be a decision by the Broadband Commission then, or?
I think that'll come out in that process. The way I kind of foresee this going is we start down this road with this, and we get to a certain point, and if we feel comfortable at that point to say, okay, council, we recommend moving forward with the full project, we would then work to start the business plan and the engineering layout with Eric Lamplin and Newcom, and start that process while this continues down to be finalized.
Okay.
So I do kind of see them running concurrently, although starting with this first.
Okay. Any further discussion?
One thing I'll note, just in general, is you may have see the little icon that's on the council packet, on the subject sheet there. It's our new city logo that's on there, and it says goal setting item. Something we talked about at some point along the line on our agenda sheets is noting items we talk about that are goal setting ideas, and so thought we'd use our new logo as kind of that icon to say, oh, hey, this is a goal setting item. So from henceforth, whenever you see something that has a little icon by it, it'll be a goal setting item. So that's why that's there.
Good.
So if you don't like it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. But that's why that's on there. So.
I think that's a good idea.
So you usually tie a string on your finger.
What's that?
Oh, is that behind you?
I couldn't hear what you said.
You said tie a string around your finger as remembrance that that was for.
Yes.
I think that's good to kind of keep them, since like I say, we did spend some time looking at those goals, and it's nice to proceed forward on the goals that we've set, so. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Resolution 8018 is passed. Next is consideration of Resolution 8118, approving engineering agreement for the Charlie Western Trail Bridge Replacement Project. Discussion on that one.
Well, in February, we worked with NICOG in submitting an application funding for TAP, which is a Federal Transportation Alternatives Program. And as part of that application process, we worked with Calhoun Burns in on some early bridge designs for a new Charlie Western Trail Bridge, as well as early preliminary cost opinions. Now, we were able to secure $249,000 as TAP funding for a new bridge. And just recently, we did contract with NICOG to submit some more applications, one through a state rec trail program, the federal rec trail program, and the DNR's REAP program. Next, what we'd like to do is enter into an engineering agreement with Calhoun Burns to do some more preliminary engineering work on a new bridge. As part of this, as part of the preliminary engineering, we would get a preliminary layout, better cost opinions for these applications, as well as we would start the submittal process to the Army Corps of Engineers for permitting. Also, part of the preliminary engineering work would be geotechnical work. Normally, that's part of the final design, but we have to get borings in the river. And this summer, with the demolition project, the demolition contractor will actually construct a causeway out into the river. And what we can do, if we get geotechnical work now, is be able to use that causeway to get the boring machine out to the river. It'll just be a lot easier, and actually it'll end up being cheaper for the city to get the work done at this time. This is one of our goal-setting items, and the agreement with Calhoun Burns is an estimated fee of $71,400. The preliminary engineering work can go on simultaneously with securing more funding. And it will save us time if we can get the permitting through the Corps done at this time. Then when that funds are available, we can go into final design construction without having to wait and be held up for permitting. So I would recommend approval of Resolution 8118 for the agreement with Calhoun Burns on the preliminary engineering for the Charlie Western Trail Bridge.
Any questions for John?
How will we fund this initially, John? I know later on it can become part of the whole project, but how will we fund it initially? Where will that come from?
Yeah, largely that's going to be road use tax dollars for the upfront stuff. Some of the, we're maybe looking to use some of the one-day borrowing funds for nuisance abatement that we've secured in the past for maybe some of it. So it's going to be a combination of use those up front. Like say long-term will be the adult project will fund that capital project in full. That's what we're trying to do, the initial outlays.
I just knew we didn't have the cash just laying around without a home. So I would summon.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? And notice this also has our goal-setting icon on it also, so. Call the roll.
Hammond,
Aye.
Valero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Resolution 8118 passes. Next is consideration of Resolution 8218, which is approving Midland GIS agreement for storm sewer mapping.
Well, we've been working with Midland GIS Solutions and setting up a geographic information system for the city. We've actually had two separate agreements. The first agreement was with Midland for mapping the water system. They came in and they located all the water features like the valves, the hydrants, and also then set up a GIS a map, and then they host that for the city. It is web-based. Last year, we had an agreement with Midland for mapping the sanitary sewer system, and they came in, field located all the items, and put that then on a separate layer on our GIS map. So we actually have three utilities: sanitary sewer, water, and storm sewer. So this agreement would be to map the third city utility, which is the storm sewer. Just as in the past agreements, the field work, Midland would come in using their survey grade equipment, field locate all the storm manholes, the intakes, flared end sections, and their survey grade equipment is very accurate. It'll locate those items, giving us X and Y coordinates to within 3/4 of an inch. When they do locate those items, they'll open them up, they'll give us conditions on those, they'll give us the depths, the elevations of the intakes, and the mapping then will show the directions of the flow pipes as well as the grades of the pipes. So the storm sewer system will then be added to our GIS map, so we'll have all 3 utilities on a single map. The nice thing about this is when we're asked for information by developers or real estate agents and the like, we have a high level of confidence that information that we're giving out is true and accurate. The cost for this GIS mapping is a lump sum fee of $60,000. So I'd recommend approval of Resolution 82-18, approving the agreement with Midland.
Any questions?
I assume this will be paid out of the storm sewer fund that we've got, so. Also, this will be fairly valuable information to have just in case we have problems with the system. To know where everything's at.
Exactly, yeah.
Does this also get down to depths and all that sort of stuff?
It'll give us the depths on the intakes and the manholes. It'll give us the elevations. So we'll be able to, in the office here, we'll be able to pull that information up and know like an elevation or the direction of flow, like well, which way does this pipe flow to? And also there will be some photos attached of the interiors of the structures.
It's good information to have for that overall system. Because we've got a lot of people that have worked for the city for a long time that probably know some of this stuff, but like a lot of us, we're all getting older and that information's going to be disappearing here from the city pretty soon, so it's nice to get it somewhat.
That's the point I was going to make. We're getting all that institutional knowledge. It saves. It's all right there, and it's like Sean says, it's accurate, and we know where everything's at. So.
Thanks so much.
Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Valero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Resolution 82-18 is approved. Next is consideration of Resolution 83-18 to approve easements for the 2018 HMA paving project. Discussion on this one.
Yes, at the last council meeting, the council approved the preliminary plans for the HMA paving project, as well as setting the hearing and letting dates. Next week, we will take bids on this project, and then at the June 18th meeting, the council will hold the hearing and award the bid. A part of this project is the paving of 2nd Street from Iowa Street to the west, to where it runs into the R&S mowing property. At 2nd Street, we will be reconstructing the sidewalks on 2nd Street in Iowa, and putting in the ADA pedestrian curb ramps. Just as we've done on other ADA sidewalk projects, temporary easements will be required at the corners, because we'll be lowering the sidewalk to get to the right grades, and then we'll be able to using the temporary easements, blend in the front yards to match the new sidewalks. Also, at the end of the paving, we'll put in storm sewer, and we'll collect water from the gutter drainage into the storm sewer system. They'll run through the R&S property, an outlet to an existing outlet that runs underneath the Charlie Western Trail, and outlets to Sherman Creek. Now the easements, there's actually 4 temporary easements and 1 permanent easement. The temporary easements, they'll not be recorded. They will terminate upon completion of the work and acceptance by the city council of the project. The permanent easement will be recorded at the courthouse. So I'd recommend approval of resolution 83-18, authorizing the mayor to sign the easement agreements.
Any questions for John?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Valero.
Resolution 8318 is approved. Next is Resolution 8418, which is approving the purchase of the water meter reading vehicle unit. Discussion on that one.
Yeah, we talked about this at our workshop, and basically, this is a follow-up on budget discussion from earlier this year. This new budget coming out here, fiscal year 19, we budgeted $14,000 in the water department to purchase a mobile meter reader system for the truck unit that goes around and pulls in the information. A couple years ago, we switched the brand of meters that we were using and the outside readers to Badger and Itron. And at that time, we bought a handheld device that you use to start and stop a service at a utility. And so we've been using that handheld as the mobile device within the truck to drive around and pull information in. And for the most part, it does what it's supposed to do. It's not designed specifically for mobile use, driving around like that. It's designed more for a one-off use for, stops here and there. So what we'd like to do is get the mobile unit, because what happens now is that the handheld that's in the truck, it'll work for a little while, then it'll time out, and then you have to restart it and time out again. And so you may, while the information is coming from the readers and the meters, it's coming out there, that handheld doesn't always catch it unless you drive slow and stop. So this will be that next step to continue that process as we go to the new meters, to give us a more efficient system and better working unit. We budgeted $14,000. The actual unit price that we're looking at is closer to just over $19,000. We do budget about $20,000 in that line item within the water department, and there's nothing else budgeted in there for this year, so we do have additional funds to cover that shortfall. So I'd recommend that the council move forward with the purchase of this unit.
I think it's a good item to have. It should help improve the efficiency of the collection of information for billing. That's some.
Second.
Any further questions, discussion? Call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Resolution 8418 is approved. Next, we have a motion to consider purchase of cyber coverage insurance. Discussion. Bob, or you want to have Bob take this one, or?
Yeah, just to recap a little bit, Bob put together some numbers for us on potential coverage for cybersecurity. The one quote we looked at was us being part of a pool with a $10 million aggregate for $2,000 a year, or we could have our own coverage for the same amount of million, but there's, we're not in the pool as we get that $1 million. That would be 3636, and so Bob's going to build off that.
Yes, Bob Ingram with Sisson and Associates. Good evening. At our last workshop, there were a couple of questions that came up about coverage for some of our system usage that we have. The first one was the communication center, and yes, the communication center would be covered under this policy. Delane, I believe you asked a question about the cloud system, and that would be covered as well.
Okay.
Under this system. The thing that I checked with Jester Insurance is on the cloud system, since it's not on premise, is this policy a premise-driven policy? And it is not. So the cloud system would be covered as well. The other thing I'd like to bring up about the cloud system, the administrator, whoever handles that, do we have anything from them that provides any coverage for our stuff that they have in their care, custody, and control?
We are still researching that. I talked to Midland GIS, and there's a handout, and Bob will give this to you. Okay. It doesn't say anything about insurance coverage, but it tells you everything they do to prevent people from getting into it. So that could be helpful, but I did follow up with them and say that's not quite exactly what I was looking for. So she's gonna let me know here in the next day or two about what their level of coverage is.
That'd be nice.
So
Okay.
we'll figure that out.
If you get that, then perhaps I can meet with the city attorney and we can take a look at it just to see what's there, what isn't there. And then the only other thing is, I forgot to mention deductible. There is a deductible. It's $5,000 in this program.
Is that with either policy, Bob?
Yes, either policy. Any questions, concerns?
Is your recommendation still to go with the second quote, the kind of
The
the more
individual?
individual policy?
Councilman, really, you know, as more municipalities start to join the group program, then that 10 million aggregate gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I feel a lot more comfortable having our standalone policy where we have our own 1 million and we're not concerned about 50, 60, or 80 other municipalities that would be in the program. Because if you had more than a $10 million loss in 1 year, then the policy's done because the aggregate's been used up. So there you sit for the rest of the year with a $2,000 expense and no coverage.
Essentially, it's a risk management situation here, and likely there wouldn't be a situation, or very unlikely that $10 million would get used up, but in a situation it does, we're out.
You're out.
Whereas the second one, where we have our independent program, our independent policy, we're guaranteed that $1 million.
Yes.
So it's do we risk it? And when we're talking about the public's money, risking is not a friendly word. So yes, the premium is a little bit higher. However, long-term risk assessment, it's in the best interest for us to go to that.
And like I said at the workshop, council, you know, with the group program, if they make changes to that, let's say they take the aggregate and now instead of 10 million, maybe they go to 20 million or 50 million. If they make a change in that, I'll certainly know about that. And if it's something that I feel comfortable with, I would come back to council and make a recommendation depending on what premium would be.
With the amount of information that we have, I mean, we just agreed to spend $60,000 to get information on the stormwater system, and the amount of information that we have, you know, and you start thinking about the ransomware stuff that's, you know, like hit Atlanta, you know, recently and things like that.
I just think given the
Pretty
nature
scary.
that we're a city, obviously, you know, everybody, regardless what your business is, I mean, you're susceptible to some kind of hacking. It happened to us. I told you about us.
Yeah.
So I just think in the case of a city, given the size and everything that the city has, I would feel a lot more comfortable with the coverage than without the coverage.
I agree.
Any further discussions?
I so move.
Second.
For which one?
Yeah, I think we need to
The
specify
30,
which option,
36,
Quote
36.
two, Jared. Quote 2.
Quote two.
the individual policy.
Thank you, council.
Thanks, Bob, for your time.
Your homework, your research.
So we were discussing a little bit earlier, Steve, you know, this helps us get out of a problem if we have a problem, but do we need to also be looking into how do we avoid having problems as far as our cybersecurity, or is there something we need to be researching to protect ourselves better, or?
Well, we're always working with Eric Merritt from Merritt Computing on those type of issues. It's something that's, you know, that certainly we're cognizant of and try to be aware of. We almost had a hacking incident about a year or so ago where it appeared one of our desktops was being logged into by, they look like Russian symbols to me, so it happened to be my desktop. And I was sitting there when it was happening, and so I took a picture of it and turned my machine off. And somebody was trying to get into it. And so we had a discussion at that time, and we took some steps to tighten the security up a little bit. But I think a lot of it just comes down to trying to stay one step ahead of those who are trying to get into your system. And you know, when it comes to an IT perspective, and we've talked about that a little bit during budget time, is, you know, is something we might need to be considering at a city level, is having some type of on-staff IT personnel. Because we really don't have that. We've got myself and Eric Merritt, and then, you know, the police work with a different entity, and so a larger scheme, I think is something we need to consider at some point, because it's more and more information all the time. It's going to be accessible.
As part of our regular audit, do our auditors do any kind of an audit of our security for our
I would say.
electronic information. Is that something they could do? Or is that something we should look at having someone do for us?
And that'd be a good idea.
You know, I don't know
I
if
mean,
the regular
there's-
auditors would be the right ones, but
Yeah, I mean, there are firms that are out there that, you know, will sell this type of coverage or do whatever, and so that'd be worthwhile to reach out to somebody else just to say, hey, look at our system.
maybe if we're gonna get this coverage through this company, maybe they have that capability through Bob. Something to research, I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. We voted on that. No, we didn't vote yet, we're still discussing. Okay,
You interrupted it.
sorry. So I was going to interrupt after the vote, but this is premature, very sorry. Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond,
Aye.
Valero. Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is consideration of Resolution 8518, which is approving submittal of an application for state recreational trail project grant. This is tying into what we talked about earlier, I guess.
Yes, they all kind of be coming together here. This is our next application for funding for the Charlie Weston Trail Bridge replacement. As you recall, we contracted with NIACOG to write 3 grants for us, and this is the first one coming up here with the state recreational trail funding. So that application is due in July, and so to apply, we have to have a council resolution approving our ability to apply. So I would recommend the council approve this so we can apply for funding the state rec trail program.
So moved.
Second. It's easy.
Any further discussion on that one? Clerk will call the roll.
Valero.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Resolution 8518 is approved. Next is Resolution 8618, approving funding for a project at 207 North Jackson, which was submitted to the city to the City of Charles City Facade Program. Looks like Mr. Wicks is going to have some discussion on this one.
Good evening, Mark Wicks, Community Development Director, representing the Design Committee of Community Revitalization. We are charged with being the first line of defense when somebody applies for, first line of review, I should say, when somebody applies for a facade improvement grant application. In this case, Dr. Scott Hansen, Central Park Dentistry, has applied for a facade improvement grant. It is for basically doubling the square footage of this existing facility. They have outgrown the existing facility. They've added another doctor. They have absorbed or purchased 2 different dental practices that they've absorbed. They need space, and they looked at relocation. They've looked at several things and decided that they're going to expand where they are now. Kitty corner there from Central Park and across from the Art Center. They've already worked out an agreement with the city for a parking lot swap there, so they have the land to do that. He is requesting the maximum amount he can of $10,000 for the grant. Estimated cost of the entire project is $722,000. Grant money would be used towards masonry work, new windows, new ADA accessible doors. Roofing landscaping would not be eligible. New signs would be, and that all adds up to way more than he needs in order to qualify for that $10,000 grant. Projects under this can apply for up to half of the project amount, capped at $10,000. He understands that if approved, this amount or this funding would not be available until after July 1st.
Questions for Mark?
The committee that reviewed this application, Mark,
Is the design committee.
agreed with the $10,000
Yeah,
amount?
yes.
They didn't look to lower it any?
No, and they had that option, and they know it. They also have the criteria sheets, and they're unanimous in making this recommendation that the council consider approval of the project.
How much of this work is to the existing building and how much is simply in addition to?
This particular is all the new addition.
Okay. And number of committees I sit on, I'm known as the denier of funds, unfortunately. And it's not, I don't mean it to be that way, but it was brought up prior to our meeting. It's kind of questionable whether or not this fits the criteria, and I'll take the hit on this one, Mayor. Just read a few lines from the criteria behind the facade grant. Really kind of stick out that the primary objective of the facade improvement grant is to revitalize the district by preserving and restoring the existing buildings, which also to by way of promoting the economic development within Riverside District. I get that, revitalizing, promoting economic development. However, we're not doing any preserving with the existing building. We're not restoring the existing building. Does this qualify?
Included in the criteria is trying to keep commercial buildings in the downtown district from being vacated.
But
And that would fit this project.
and that would definitely fit for existing buildings for that. But the main thing is existing or new building, then this. It's hard to preserve a building that's out there. And so new construction to me doesn't qualify. You can't restore a non-existing building. So preserving and restoring are immediately out, but that's the main objective.
This is an expansion of an existing building. By expanding it, they're keeping the building they're currently in from being vacated.
I appreciate you mentioned that, because down further, the excluded work, and I'm going to stretch this, but I think this application is stretched a little bit too. Items that are not included is considered work that is of routine maintenance. Routine maintenance with any building or any business, if you are doing a good business and you need to expand, isn't an expansion considered routine?
I would argue it absolutely is not.
Okay. I like the project, I like the owner, I like the business, I like all of it. However, I don't see that it fits. So that's where I'm at.
We would argue that this is an economic development project. It is intended rather to just deal with facades of the building. That's why it does not involve anything interior. You're asking about the existing building. This is just for the current one. It is actually expanding and improving on the existing building downtown and keeping it from being vacated. This business has outgrown the current location.
So what you're saying is, it's, even though there's a current building there and this is new construction, the new construction is renovation of the current building to make the current building still usable.
Suitable for this particular business, correct? This business could not
Yeah.
stay in the existing building without the expansion.
And the option of not expanding this building and relocating elsewhere.
And they did look at those
You have to go.
options, yes. And that may or may not be downtown.
Right, I understand.
But I guess to me that isn't really relevant to this grant. It's relevant to the community and to the city, but to this grant.
But in the grant criteria, it talks about keeping a commercial building from being vacated.
While preserving and restoring, and neither of those are being done here.
It's preserving this particular business in this building, so. It's totally up to the council if you can decide that this is a worthy project or not. This is adding new jobs, it's adding significant tax increase. With your
Well, I
property
don't
tax.
think, considering a quality project, or not behind the project, does it fit the program? That's what we gotta decide. Does it
That's
fit
what
the
you have to decide.
I understand your point, Mike, but I think overall, generally speaking, it's a great addition to downtown. It's an expansion of a business which is important, and it's keeping the business in the downtown area, which I think overall outweighs the technicality that Mike's talking about, that I think this will fit. I'd move for 8618.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
I guess I would say, just reviewing the language there, I would agree with Mark that I do think it falls under encouraging the continued occupancy of a commercial building, which is one of the purposes of the program.
Thanks, Brad. Any further questions or comments?
I would say with Brad's review of it, I would withdraw my objection to it. I'm hesitant, but our attorney is hired for a reason. He will read between the lines. So I will withdraw my objection on this, considering his opinion.
And as we've done before with this particular grant and all city funded grants, we can continually look at tweaking it, redefining it to match what you want it to match. They're going to continue to apply for anything that looks like it may qualify under these current grant programs, whether it's this one or any of them. So, and then that's the way the system works. It is up to you guys then to decide if it's something that you want to back and fund or not. And regardless, you have the ability to go back in and redefine or expand or narrow the focus of that particular grant criteria.
And this is one of those that's a limited fund that is generally used up pretty quickly.
Very quickly,
So
yes.
it's one of those that it's good to stay within the parameters of it, which is where my objection came from, because if we do have an existing building that is needing this, I'd hate to see a new construction jump in there where a existing building really should take precedence with this program.
Well, I appreciate the fact, your job is to see whether these qualify with the current criteria, with the grant, or how they fit. So we appreciate the fact that you are doing that. My job will be to continue to bring these projects in front of you and work with what we have, so.
Wasn't part of the plan when Dr. Hansen came and talked to us about the whole project he was building? Isn't the entrance to the building going to change and some other things in those plans?
The interest may change in the current facility. It's not part of,
Right.
there'll be an ADA accessible entrance.
Right.
All we're dealing with on this particular application is the new expanded section.
Right.
So
But
I do not know about.
Technically.
Technically, what I'm trying to say is this whole project is going to involve doing some changes, a new entrance and things like that.
Oh, absolutely, do you?
Okay, so to me, if you really want to start splitting hairs on the thing, I think there'd be enough money going into the old building
Yes.
as far as facade type things that this still would apply.
Actually, I stand corrected. The new facility will have the new main entrence. I'm looking at the.
But you're going to change.
So you'd have to remodel the old door, so,
Yeah, and if you've ever done any remodeling, you're going to do a lot of work for $10,000.
yeah.
So,
And that's where, and just to speak on that, that's on my cover sheet where I come up with 57,600, I try to just pick the things that are qualified items. And, those listable, they talk about new exterior windows, new ADA entry doors, so it's all stuff that's improving that existing building as a whole, even though the building is changing as a whole. So, so even if you take half of that 57,000, that, that puts them still above the maximum amount. So I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I mean, I think, Mike, your points are well taken, and I think we need to continue always to look at this and evolve this, but I think this project pretty qualifies decently for this.
Any further discussion?
Thank you very much.
Like Mark said, it's good that we have that discussion because we want to make sure that the dollars are being used for what they're committed to. And I think
That's our job.
that was a good discussion to show that in this case they are, I think. So Dirk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Resolution 8618 is approved. Any miscellaneous correspondence today?
I have none.
Nothing today. Brad, anything for report for you?
No, Your Honor.
Any city clerk report tonight?
None.
City administrators report?
Yeah, I'll just mention that I passed out some notes tonight for everybody, so it'll take some time to go through those and some various topics. Additionally, out the wastewater treatment plant, part of that project, we're looking to possibly acquire some land. That survey work is going to get done tomorrow. That's something we've been waiting on, trying to get coordinated as a survey of the property, so that's going to be happening tomorrow. So hopefully we should have some numbers back on that soon. We'll be talking here in the next month or so about the wastewater treatment plant and the new cost for construction. Where we've applied for a state revolving loan fund. Now what we're trying to do is see if we can qualify as what they call a disadvantaged community. You have two options. You can either get a 20-year loan or a 30-year loan. If you get a 20-year loan, it's a 1.75 interest rate. 30-year, it's a 2.75 interest rate. If you're a disadvantaged community, you can get a 1.75 interest rate for 30 years. And I think there's some parameters that we would qualify under that. So Ron Fiskus and I are working with Tracy Siebold at SRF to try and make that happen, because that'll make a big difference in how we move forward. With that, we'll be having some additional discussions here about rate increase for coming up here for the new plant. Thankfully, we've been doing an annual 3.5% increase. Because of that, our increase for the plant project is going to be smaller. It'll be fairly substantial, but it won't be terrible. So that'll be something we'll be looking at here at an upcoming workshop to see what that pricing and structure is going to look like. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Marshalltown as a team of city administrators. We're meeting to figure out what the next steps are to fill the void for the Institute of Public Affairs that's being shut down at the University of Iowa due to state budget cuts. That program is no longer available, so we're going to be trying to figure out how to move that forward. Wednesday, we will be meeting for the Ambulance Commission, meeting with AMR to talk about extending that contract for a year and figuring out how to do that. We're setting up a meeting with the Southwest Bypass TIF group to talk about some potential land acquisition and flood mitigation projects. And lastly, I will be out of the office between June 7th, returning on June 12th. I'll be on vacation, so I'll be out of the office for a few days. But if you need me, you can email me and I might answer. That's all I have.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Brad and Steve, the nuisance thing with mowing and all that stuff, how's that coming? That was a pretty lengthy list.
Well, last I knew, we had 71 notices that we sent out, mailed notices, at about $7 a pop. So we've that number's probably higher now. I know we've had a number of people coming through City Hall, coming back to talk to code enforcement about the letters they've received. But I'd like to think it's been fairly successful in getting people to get their grass cut. Something we adopted last year was, our previous policy was anytime you had to cut your grass, we'd have to send you a notice, we'd have to wait 10 days or something before, we could force anything. Now what we did this year is we made it so that you get one notice for the season. Just like with the snow removal, if you get one notice, and then after that, we're just going to come and post on your property if it needs to be cut, and you have a short time window, and if it's not done, the city will do it. It's not something we want to do. We don't want to be in the grass cutting business, and we will, we're going to bill accordingly, but we'll be ready to cut grass and do that because it's a priority of the council, and it's a way to keep our community looking nice. So we've been out there hitting it pretty hard. I appreciate all the calls and from people that have had issues, because that's, when the adjacent property owner calls in, that's when it is the most effective. So.
Thank you for your efforts on that.
Any board, commissioner, committee reports? If not, we have a motion to adjourn.
Do we have the Relay for Life people since they did show up?
They were going on the old meeting time, Your Honor.
No, just
Do you guys want to have any comments about your event coming up on the 22nd?
Other than
Speak up to the microphone.
Okay. Sure. Other than we appreciate the fact that we were approved without being here. So, it's always a good event. The Relay for Life is a great event for our community. So we appreciate the fact that we can close off some of the streets so that we can have some events. We've got the pedal cars, of course, it's very popular with the children. And then we've got AMR coming with an ambulance and fire truck so that adults and children can kind of go check it out, see what it's all about. And that's barring any emergencies, naturally. If there's any emergencies, they're going to leave. So anyway, we do appreciate, we apologize for being late. We thought it was 7, so we apologize for that. But we do thank you very much for approving us while we're not even here. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your time in this.
Any other loose ends to tie up?
I'll move.
Move for adjournment. Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.